Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lorcana Cross Continental Challenge. My name is Garrick. Welcome to the Lorcana layer, and thank you for tuning in. We just had some amazing matches earlier today between some of the best players in the world, and I am joined here alongside me is Rip. Rip, how are you?
What's going on, Garrick? And what's going on, everyone? Pleasure to be here. And I'm doing pretty good. I'm super excited for today's games, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, I'm really excited for them as well. We have a crazy matchup. I can't wait to get into the deck list here because what we have is absolutely insane. Of course, we have a match between RMB from Team Labyrinth and Tim Buchot, the winner of DLC Bochum. Now, Tim is going by Tim because that's what he told me. I asked him
Yes. Shout out
before.
Tim.
I asked him beforehand. I was like, "Hey, I want to get your name right. I want to pronounce it right. So please send me a voice message of how to say your name." And he just said, "You can call me Tim. That's what everyone calls me." So we're going with R&B versus Tim. Um,
Shout out RMB,
yeah, shout out
Team
R&B.
NA.
We're gonna try to be as unbiased as we can be, but we are from North America,
Yes.
and
Shout out to all the European homies as well.
yeah, for sure. Um, Tim, has a special place in my heart because he did play Ruby Amethyst and he did win Bochum with Ruby Amethyst,
hmm
which is my favorite deck. I know you're a big Sapphire Steel player, but you've also dipped your toes into Ruby Amethyst. Why don't you give us a little bit of your personal background on where you started with Lorcana, what you do currently? Let the people know.
Yeah, so I started playing Lorcana about a year ago when Lorcana pretty much came out. I used to play Digimon. I did regionals, did a lot of events, but as soon as Lorcana got announced, I'm a huge Disney fan. And to be honest, as soon as I heard it, I wanted to hop on the game and try it out. And when I started playing in person, I found out about Pixelborn, so I ended up playing Pixelborn. First deck I tried out was Green Steel and Red Purple, like you had mentioned. And ever since then, I just kept playing. Kind of got addicted to it, to be honest with you. It was like really enjoying Lorcana. And after playing on Pixelborn, as soon as I heard about DLC events coming out, I was super excited. I've actually been to 3 DLC events, had an awesome time. That's actually where I met you. And I also do some content creation. I have a YouTube channel. Yes, I am a Sapphire Steel enjoyer. I really do love the deck. And for those of you who don't know, R&B is known for Sapphire and Steel. That's actually how he got his top 8 finish at the DLC in Atlanta. And Sapphire Steel, honestly, is just an awesome deck. That's after I stopped playing Red Purple, Sapphire Steel just really the play style of it, the explosiveness with Whole New World, such an awesome toolbox deck. And yeah, that's pretty much my story. Just been, on the Lacrosse scene from online all the way to in person. And I'm super honored to be here for this event, casting alongside it with you. And yeah, I'm just super excited to see this game because against these two pro players, you can't really ask for a better finish to end off round one.
Yeah, this is the
And
final match of round one. We actually do have the standings here after the first four matches, I believe. Or no, it was more than that. There were 8 matches total. So the first seven, we'll pull the standings up for you right now. So in front of us, we see at the top the match we're about to watch, which is R&B versus Tim. The first match was Dale versus Spessy. That was an Emerald Steel versus Amethyst Steel matchup, and Spessy was actually able to take that one 2-1. We also had Zach Bivens go up against Din, and Din was able to take that as well. Zan Syed versus Artabax. Artabax was able to take that. Brennan DeCandio versus Frank Karsten. Frank Karsten was able to take that. And then Sailor from Team Labyrinth was able to come in for the first win for North America on Ruby Sapphire and was able to beat
Hmm.
the ever present Earlmeister. Kawa, which was the match just prior to this one, was able to defeat Lamb Chops. And then earlier today, No, I'm Not and Buenasera had one of the craziest matches I have ever seen in Lorcana. But No, I'm Not was able to come out on top in a quasi mirror match between two Ruby Amethyst players. So right now, it's not looking good for North America. 2-5.
No, it's not.
Two to
Yeah.
five.
Yeah, honestly, all these games could have gone either way. I know all these players picked their deck. They had some time to go over their decks list, and I know everyone brought their deck that they were confident with. And like everyone can go back and watch all the previous games from all these different casters. Shout out to them as well. And honestly, all these games have just been really close, especially the two games that were today with No I'm Not and Lamb Chops representing NA. And just like you said, like for this tournament right now, for the standings to be 2-5, I know a lot of people were really hyping up NA to come and like just dominate, but I don't think so. Like on both sides, there's so many skilled players, and right now, hopefully, RMB is able to get another point on the board, and for round two, we can come back. And round two is just gonna be even crazier. Hopefully, all our NA players come with some revenge.
Yeah, right now, the best North America can do is go 3-5 in the first round, but it's a really, really interesting matchup. I think it's something that people are not going to expect at all because you would think that Tim would be playing Ruby Amethyst. Of course, that's what we saw him win a Disney Lorcana challenge with, and I think everybody now knows that RMB is a classic Sapphire Steel player. But what we are actually going to get is completely different. Why don't you start and tell us a little bit about RMB and his background?
Yeah, so R&B has been a member of the Lorcana community pretty much since the beginning. I remember when I first heard his name, it was because of Sapphire and Steel, and he was on the Pixelborn ladder grinding games, and he did some YouTube content. And ever since then, following him on social media through the competitive scene, for him to be able to get top 8 at the first DLC event ever, it just shows you how much of a good player he is, and also with the color combination. And he also was able to get a top 64 finish at the DLC in Fort Worth, Texas. And that was actually the first time where I met him in person since I'm from Texas. So that was such an awesome experience to meet him, such an awesome guy. And R&B just seems to not be able to let go of Sapphire and Steel like a lot of us Sapphire and Steel players. We just love the deck. And today, R&B does decide to bring Sapphire and Steel, and I really can't wait to see how he uses the deck for the new set 6 meta and to be able to hopefully again get one on the board for NA.
Yeah, so here we have the deck up on the screen. As a Sapphire Steel player yourself that's been in the trenches playing Sapphire Steel for a long, long time, why don't you go over this list and tell us what you think? What do you like about the new additions from Azurite Sea? Do you think they bring a lot to the deck? And what do you think about some of the interesting choices that he made with the new set, as well as some changes made to the deck with cards from previous sets?
Yeah, so I think the first thing everyone can see is pretty much the first card on the list, which is going to be Jim Hawkins from the new Azurite Sea set 6. And that card is probably the best card to include, the newest tool that Sapphire and Steel got, which is a really good early game pressure. The Jim Hawkins is a 0-4 stat line, 2 drop, but his effect is every time you ink, this card gets Challenger +2. So if you ink 2 times in one turn, which Sapphire and Steel usually does, he's actually able to swing 4 for 4 as a 2 drop, and that can answer Sisu's, Daisies, pretty much anything early game. He can answer to it, and if he gets traded back into, at least it has to be a 2 for 1. So that's the first awesome inclusion that I see in the deck. And after that, it's pretty standard. You still have the magic brooms that he chose over the Smee, probably just to answer any green decks because those Diablos can get pretty pesky. The P and Hiram staple as well as Cogsworth, just for the resist, a pretty core package right there. And then we see another Jim Hawkins. This is gonna be the Shift Jim Hawkins, another set 6 inclusion that we got in the set. And this card is able to shift for 3 onto the Little Gym, and he gets to deal 1 damage on something on the board that's a character or location, stat line 5/5, and is able to quest for 2. So as you can see with those two cards right there, what Sapphire and Steel was lacking in previous formats is just really having a solid early game rather than just having like Captain Hook and Smee. So now that we have a stronger shift line compared to Robin Hood, since Robin Hood can get Medusa'd, this shift line like enables a lot of early attack power to fight locations. Again, very small stat line with full strength. And after that, we have the aerial, Tinkerbell, and the Tamatoa is pretty much standard. He does opt out to use the the set I believe 3/4 Simba, pretty old school. We usually see that in no New Worlds list, and in this list again just to counter pesky Diablos and to fight the board. And then after that, we get into the action cards, and the action cards are pretty standard as well with the Fire the Cannons, Smash, Zeus, Let It Go to counter damage spells. And then the other new addition that we got, and because everything else is pretty standard, is just to sell the Azurite Sea, which is a strong 2-drop. This card lets you ink twice per turn, and this card lets you use that ink non-exerted, so you can use it and use a popsicle or like a fire the cannon. Very strong list.
Yeah, I'm really excited by this list. I first took a look at it when I was editing Team Labyrinth's most recent video of their day one deck list. I'm not sure if this is exactly the same 60, but it's very, very close. And the Jim Hawkins shift line with the rigging specialist is really exciting. After seeing that, I was like, maybe I start playing Sapphire Steel because you know what? My castles and my libraries do not look that safe anymore. There are so many options for this deck to deal with those threats now, and not just those. I mean, we don't see them in this deck, but they do have the option to play the Hideaway, or they do have the option to play the Cusco from Shimmering Skies as well. But RMB opting to run the shift line, which can deal with those very difficult to deal with locations without sacrificing cards from his hand. He's able to develop big threats onto the board. And you take a look at the rigging specialist there. He is a 5 strength, 5 willpower character that quests for 2. So not only does he come down and answer something, it doesn't necessarily have to be a location, but he's a significant threat in and of himself. You're happy to see him come off the top of the deck, especially if you have the shift line available to you. But even just putting him onto the board, he deals that 1 damage, and he is questing for 2. So if you already have something like a Lucky Dime out, he's going to gain you the 2 lore immediately with that activation. So I really do like the Jim Hawkins line. And of course, like you mentioned, we see the Sail the Azurite Sea. This is a card that we've been seeing a lot of in the challenge so far. And a lot of players have been putting it to good use, especially Sailor, which is, appropriate with the name. But Sail the Azurite Sea seems like it's one of the strongest cards in the set so far.
Yes, it's definitely one of the strongest sets, at least as far as that Sapphire got included. Just being a better card than Tipo, since Tipo, although it did let you ink a uninkable card from your hand, the ink came in exerted. So being able to ramp on turn 3 and play in a body like a Magic Broom, a Jim Hawkins, or a Smee is super cracked. And that's why you can see that RMB chose to use it and actually, replace the old school style of Detective Mickey or Tipo now. So hopefully in the format, like in this tournament, we'll see if that's actually the right way to go. And if not, we might fall back into other lines of ramp. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, this list is super solid. I think RMB took his time and picked all these cards to counter pretty much everything in the meta. And again, I really can't wait to see how he uses his deck, especially against his opponent, which we'll get into right now.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at Tim. He is, of course, DLC Bochum champion, which he was able to do with that Ruby Sapphire deck. Such or sorry, Ruby Amethyst deck, which is one of the staple decks within the format. We were able to see No, I'm Not get a win with that in the mirror matchup earlier, but it's not listed here. He also made top 4 at Lille, so that's 2 golden Mickeys in his back pocket, and of course he is a Ruby Amethyst fan. But he's not playing Ruby Amethyst today. Let's take a look at the deck. And we have the Spice. That's right, Tim is playing Amber Sapphire aggro, something I don't think anybody expected to see in the Lorcana Cross Continental Challenge. We have a whole bunch of interesting cards here. We have the new Alice that has ward and gives other characters ward when she quests. She's a 3-cost uninkable 1/4 that quests for 2. We have the Scrooge McDuck, who is a huge character, a 5/5 that quests for 2. Of course, he's from the previous set. And we have the Baymax, who gains lore whenever you heal your characters, I believe. He is a 2/6 that also quests for 2. So there are a ton of heavy questers on here. There's going to be an exceptional amount of early pressure put on by this deck, of course, with cards like Baloo, with staples like Donald Duck, and of course, Donald's date. We have Daisy Duck, the exceptionally powerful 1/4 that quests for 2 from Shimmering Skies. Rip, why don't you tell me what you think of this deck?
I think this deck is super solid, and it's actually a weakness to Sapphire and Steel because we did talk about previously the 4 willpower stat line, and that's really an issue for Steel decks in general to get over. So as you can see with the Daisy Duck and the Nala, that's going to be one card that might stick on the board a little bit too long and rack up some lore. But what I really like about this deck is not only that it's super spicy, but you can see that Tim really dedicated some thought into this. And the most broken thing about this deck is going to be the new card from set 6, Alice, which is going to be that 3-cost uninkable. And with her effect, having ward, questing for 2, and when she quests, giving another card on your board, ward, and giving it ward and 1+ lore is insane. This list is just going to be able to, with not only the locations, but with the Rapunzel, the Kita, just to stall out your opponent and gain lore by healing. And with the locations, honestly, it's such a toolbox deck. R&B is going to have a tough time getting over these strong characters. He's going to have to hope he opens up with the Jim Hawkins shift line to answer some of that early board. But this match is going to be just like, I'm super excited just because of how unique both these decks are. And I don't think we've seen Sapphire Amber in this tournament so far, right?
No, to be honest, I've never seen Sapphire Amber in my life. I started playing right after Ursula's Return came out. And I know that Amber Sapphire was a deck that was played in the earlier formats, in like set 1, 2, maybe. I've heard stories about that, but I've never seen the deck actually played anywhere. So this is completely new to me. It's a completely new color combination that I'm just not used to seeing. So I'm really, really excited to see it. I think one of the cards that is been super underrated is McDuck Manor. It's similar to the library in that it comes down on turn 4. It is an inkable, and it also gains 2 lore a turn. It doesn't give you the draw effect, but it does have 9 willpower, so it's a lot more sturdy than the Queen's Castle. It's definitely a card that can take a lot of punishment and still remain on the board. So I think that's going to be something that R&B might not be prepared for. I mean, after all, we took a look at his list earlier, and he does not have that hideaway. He does not have that Cusco. So it's going to be difficult for him to deal with a 9 health location, because while the rigging specialist is great for taking care of things that maybe have 8 willpower, 9 might just barely be out over that threshold that Jim's not going to be able to effectively deal with.
Yeah, the locations are going to be a huge issue. Hopefully, again, he opens up with that Jim shift line because that small Jim's effect does stack. So potentially, when he does shift into Jim, he can come in swinging for 8. That's not going to be enough to take out the Manor. And not only that, but the Seven and the Scrooge McDuck are going to be very annoying to deal with. Again, Steel does not just one shot characters other than maybe like a Zeus. So he's going to have to not play into Rapunzel's and let him get draw value. And with another interesting thing that's going to come up on turn 6 is already when he would get into the Bayamax range and he's able to tempo and gain some lore. That's going to be very annoying to deal with. And again, I really can't wait for this match.
And with that, we are going to get into the match here. We are joining into the call. I'm pulling up the game right now, so we're going to have that available for all of you.
We'll see.
And we are into the game here. And ready to go. Let me just switch these badges around. We've got them on the wrong side. But the players are lined up and ready to go. They're just looking to cut their decks here. And I'd also like to say shout out to our judge, Phil, who has been judging a bunch of these games throughout the week. He's been amazing. He is the one spectating for us here. So shout out to him. He's been great.
Yes.
And
shout
Rip
out to the homie. He's an awesome judge.
Rip has joined us. Unfortunately, there's some technical issues. I'm not sure what's going on. Not able to get Rip's camera into the feed, but maybe we'll be able to fix that during the match. Everything was working before we started. As soon as I hit go live, it all falls apart, which seems to be a theme for the casters this week. But we're all figuring it out. They're rolling the dice. And we are looking to cut here. So we're going to have Tim on the left and R&B on the right with the band The Bird out there. What do you think of that, Rip? Oh,
sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I know all week they've been having some technical issues. Yeah, so just like you said, with this game getting started, again, I have to hope that... I'm not sure who's going first. Did we get to see who's going first?
I didn't see the die roll here, but we are taking a look at R&B's hand. He's got a Whole New World, Fire the Cannons, Fishbone Quill. He's got the Cogsworth, the Hiram Flaversham, the Tinkerbell, and the Sail. What do you think of this hand as a Sapphire Steel player? What are you looking to keep? What are you looking to send back?
Well, for this matchup, I definitely want to see him try to mulligan for a small gym. And for sure, some early game pressure along with the Popsicle. That Fire the Cannons is not going to do anything. And the Hiram in this matchup, unfortunately, is going to be a little bit too slow. Maybe after he stabilizes some heavy hitters on the board, he can get his draw engine going. And yeah, we saw a mulligan for 6 cards. Let's see what R&B gets. Again, hopefully a gym or a magic broom, just something to fight the board early on.
Yeah, he's definitely going to want to start off early with characters onto the board so he can contest. Like you said, he wants to find that gym. He wants to find early characters that can keep him in the game. Now, with Sail coming into the game, we see a lot of players cutting things like Tipo. That is going to hurt you in the early game, but he does have access to things like the Magic Broom. But in the opening hand here, we see 2 Lucky Dimes, not necessarily something that we want to see on R&B's side.
Oh, if I'm not mistaken, Lamb's earlier also bricked on his opening hand, so this is very unfortunate. It is like a sapphire and steel curse, unfortunately, with those two lucky dimes, but at least he opened up that one drop popsicle and the ramp.
Yeah, he does have Sail. He does have Fortisphere. He does have Popsicle. He has Jim and he has Hiram. So we got the two lucky dimes in the hand, but he does have a bunch of other options. Hopefully, he's able to draw into more ink here. There's a glare on that. I didn't quite see what it was. Now, just so the people at home are aware, we're not going to be able to see Tim's hand throughout the match. So it's going to be a surprise to see what he has come down. We see the weasel go into the ink there. And it looks like he passed.
Yeah, I don't think he did a turn one play. I think we're
Mm,
just getting some confirmation on that. We do see R&B get the two drop Jim though, so that's going to be very helpful for him. We're going to see that come down.
yeah, so he just drew an aerial for the turn, I believe. He did have the gem in his opening hand. And yeah, if Tim passed on his turn one, he's in a really tough position here because he is the aggro player. You'd love to see a one drop come down. R&B chooses to ink the gem. Very interesting. Wants to sail on the Azurite Sea here and potentially play the Popsicle to draw an additional card. He inks the Let It Go that he draws with the sail and finds a grab your sword. So now he's in a really tough position. 4 uninkables in his hand and 1 Hiram. He'd love to get an inkable off the top so he can start drawing cards.
Yeah, it looks like he valued the card draw more because he can, as we can see, he has a bunch of uninkables in his hand, so he wants to play around that. That Anna's gonna come down, but it's pretty slow. Nothing too crazy. She does need another character on board to get that +1 lore. So as long as R&B draws a inkable, which he did, we're gonna see that Hiram come down and hopefully get some more inkables in the hand.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was a Fortisphere, so he's not able to cycle that, but he's had plenty of items already to start this game off. He does get a Fishbone Quill into the hand. Can't quite see what the other one is, just because that is a little bit of a glare there on the left-hand side. But we pass over to Tim. Of course, for anyone that doesn't know what this Ana does, it is a 1/4 that quests for 1, but she quests for 2 if you have another hero in play. So he drops 2 heroes, another Ana, and a Kita. The Kita is just a 1-drop 2/2 that quests for 1, but both of them being heroes means that Tim is going to quest for 2, and now we do see on R&B's side that he did draw a Sail, and he gets a Tamatoa off the top of his deck.
Now that's gonna be a very nice two cards drawn from that, just because we do see more inkables coming in, and we're gonna see another card drawn off the Hiram. And now R&B, what he really needs to do is not like focus on drawing anymore and start putting pressure on the board. That Quill being able to bring out the gym as well is gonna be super strong to fight the board. And so far, with the lore being not too crazy, the game's just starting. Right now, it's still pretty much anyone's game. R&B is just gonna have to be careful again, playing into those Rapunzels.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see what R&B chooses to do here. Like you said, he can get that Jim Hawkins onto the board, and the shift option next turn would be very, very juicy.
There's a gym.
And he did not ink for turn the good old-fashioned way, so we see the sail go into the ink there. And we pass over to Tim. R&B starting off really well here, I gotta say. Not a ton of pressure with Tim missing his turn 1. And despite having all those uninkables in his opening hand, R&B has been able to ramp effectively, finding the sails and the Fishbone Quill when he needed them. The Hiram was huge for him, and now he's feeling pretty good. He's going to have a ton of options here going into his next turns. So we go over to Tim. Tim's going to want to put on more pressure than he has thus far.
Yeah, right now, if because R&B is gonna have to answer all those characters on board and the location. And a grab your swords is not gonna do anything other than kill the small Kita. He can shift to the big gym. If I'm not mistaken, that's what he have in his hand next to the Tamatoa. He would be able to knock out the location in one hit since he does have that quill out. But that's the only thing he can answer. Yes, because being able just to draw was a slow start. Again, the double was very unfortunate. But right now with the shift gym, that should be able to answer some stuff, but he didn't even quest, which is very interesting. What do you think about him not questing?
Yeah, I think he's just afraid of the shift option that R&B has available to him. And far be it from me to tell a DLC winner how to play, but it just seems like he needs to get some pressure on as far as the lore totals are concerned. We see a Tinkerbell come into R&B's hand, which is huge. It looks like two Tinkerbells potentially and a Grab Your Sword. It looks like he just has everything he could possibly want to control the game and completely take over, especially with Tim not questing. Thinking
Yeah,
about an aerial
honestly,
here.
this turn he's gonna have to set up him either catching up in lore and start putting pressure on Tim, rather than Tim putting the pressure on R&B. And we do see the aerial come down, and just on it. Oh wow, he's gonna quest with that gym. I don't think Tim's gonna attack into that gym, so I do like him questing there. What do you think Tim needs right now to fight his board back to R&B's?
Well, there's not a lot of potential for him to draw cards with things like, Rapunzel. Kita would be okay here, I guess. The problem is he's just started off so slow here, and R&B has everything you could want, even on this current board state. Ariel could not be targeted by anything. She does have ward, of course, and Tim's going to want to quest. So it's hard for him to effectively take control of this board because he does have the Sven out here. The Sven is a 3-3, the Kita is a 2-2, and the Ana is a 1-4. So we could send those three characters to remove Hiram, but then, of course, you're not questing, and that basically saves R&B 5 lore at that point. So I'm not really sure what we could look for here if we're Tim. Maybe just try to build the board up as fast as you can, but he knows that Grab Your Sword is in the deck. He knows that the Shift Gym is in the deck. He knows that things like Tinkerbell are in the deck, so he can't take too much time.
Well, it looks like we had a little issue here. Cards in our hand, but everything should be fine. But yeah, that aerial, like you said, is gonna put a lot of pressure on the board, and we know that Tim doesn't have that many heavy hitters in his deck. So this is actually a very nice move from R&B. I'm over here thinking he was gonna shift into the big gym, but as you can see here, this is why R&B is such a good Sapphire and Steel player. Really thinking turns ahead, and is gonna try to get at least something going on the board.
All right, looks like Tim challenges into the gym and shifts the Kita. So there's the Kita that we talked about. One of the stronger cards in the deck. It does allow him to quest more freely here. So a potential answer found by Tim. Looks like R&B.
Interesting. We'll see what Tim decides to do here.
It looks like he passes over R&B, just counting out the potential lore, I believe, that Tim could get on the next turn and trying to figure out what he wants to do. The shift line no longer available to him, so he has the grab your sword that can be sung by Ariel, of course. But he also has the potential to put down a dime and activate the dime this turn and go up to 13. And with a Hiram quest, he could go to 14. He, of course, doesn't want to leave too much of a opportunity for Tim to come back if he does decide to just go all in here with the Ariel lore gain. But what are you thinking if you're the Sapphire Steel player?
I don't think he can afford to race him here. Maybe if he was at 5 lore, but he's only at 3. If he doesn't really interact with Tim's board, then Tim's just gonna be able to out quest him pretty much here. He has to put pressure. That's why I didn't like him questing with the small gym. Didn't really make sense to me because that was a very good trade on his end. Small gym would have been able to at least fight back. And now we're in an awkward spot with just having Hiram and Ariel. R&B needs to get a Tinkerbell or something on the board. That way he can answer multiple characters on the following turn.
We'll see what R&B decides to do here. Just thinking out all of his options. These are some of the highest level players in the game, of course. We see a Tinkerbell go into the ink. He has another one available to him. He has 2 more in his hand, actually. So we see a Tinkerbell come down. That's going to put 1 damage on every one of Tim's characters. Now, the Kita did... Oh, he shifts the second Tinkerbell to put 2 damage onto everything. And moving 4 of the characters on Tim's side. What an excellent play by R&B. Just beautiful, using the Tinkerbell to shift the other Tinkerbell. That is something you can do out there for all you players that are interested in learning from the best.
I did not even see that second Tinkerbell there on the board. That's on in his hand. I couldn't see it there, so I did not see that play. But wow, he was just able to pretty much board wipe Tim, and I think that's gonna seal the deal. I don't even think he can get some Rapunzel value off here, even if he does draw 2, 3 cards. It's really not gonna do anything since the lore again. Oh, it looks like he's scooping up.
Yep, that's game 1 for North America R&B on the Sapphire Steel. He just drew into everything he needed. It looked like it was tricky there for a moment when he had all those uninkables in his hand, but he was able to come back. He was able to take the game over and have everything he needed. That Tinkerbell on the Tinkerbell play was absolutely beautiful from R&B, and that's just a testament to the many, many years, I guess not years, but months he's been spending playing Sapphire Steel.
It's felt like years, and yeah, what a crazy game. Both started off pretty slow, but R&B was able to get that Tinkerbell sword combination that is known for New World decks to have that board wipe. We don't get to use Be Prepared, unfortunately, but our Tinkerbell swords combination is pretty much the board wipe that the deck has. So what an awesome game. Now that Tim's going to be on the play, depending on his draws, we'll see if he's able to open up with some more early lore aggression. Looks like they're just going to mulligan and shuffle their cards for a bit.
Yeah, Tim was not able to get that 1-drop in the first game. He's going to look to start with a Daisy Duck, I would assume. That's what he's going to want to see. Of course, Daisy, Donald's Day, Quest for 2. And there's a ton of non-characters in R&B's deck. We're taking a look at the decks right now. You can see them on your screen. You're not missing any gameplay. They're simply shuffling and cutting their decks right now. We're not going to let you miss a single second. But we see that there are a ton of non-characters in R&B's deck. If it comes down, she has a high likelihood of not hitting any characters and not giving R&B that additional draw power, which sometimes can happen and can backfire if you are a Daisy enjoyer. All right, the game has started. Let's get right back into the action for all you watching. Got a nice look at R&B's hand. What do you think of this?
This is a interesting opening for R&B. Pretty much what we're gonna see from the other previous game. Again, just gonna mulligan, keep the ramp, keep your 1-drop Fortis Sphere, and go for some early aggro aggression to counter those beefy 1-2 drops that Tim is probably gonna open with. If I was R&B, I'd be worried about a turn 1 Daisy, and then Tim having a crazy curve followed by a Rapunzel just in case R&B tries to fight back. But yeah, just want to open up some aggression. And Tim's probably just looking for the perfect curve. And it looks like he's gonna keep his whole hand. And if I was
Oh,
R&B, I'd not be happy about that.
that's all right. We'll send back 5 if we're R&B. We're going to try and find some answers here. Of course, we have no clue what is in Tim's hand at this point, but R&B is going to try and find some better cards, at least from his side of the field here. Tim keeping a full grip. I'm going to assume we're going to see a Daisy. Maybe we'll see her date Donald come down and protect her. But right now, R&B has to be feeling okay. You know, he won the first game, and he'll be on the draw even if Tim has the quote-unquote God hand here. R&B is going to be on the play in the third and final game. R&B keeping us
Yeah,
in
this game is
suspense
going
here.
to be crazy.
He does have a Fire the Cannons and a Jim Hawkins. He's got 2 Jims. It's not a bad hand, I don't think. Of course, Fire the Cannons doesn't remove Daisy, but at least you have Jim to contest the board. You can put the sail down to give Jim Challenger. I believe every time you ink, Jim
Yeah,
gets +2 on Challenger. Is that right?
yes, Jim does get the +2 on Challenger, and it's a very strong start for R&B. So let's see how Tim is able to respond. And we do see that Daisy turn 1 Daisy.
Yep.
So she is going to be able to quest for 2 before R&B is going to be able to answer that. But if I was R&B, I'd still be very happy with my opening hand.
Draws into a dime. Not necessarily something he wants to see, but he has a pretty decent hand, so it's not the end of the world to see that dime. A Fortis Sphere is going to come down after the Tamatoa goes in the ink. He draws another uninkable. It's the Ariel Treasure Collector. And we pass it on over to Tim. Tim inks the Baymax. Exerts 2. And what do we have here? Decides to go on a little quest with Daisy first. Sail is going to the bottom of the deck. Of course, like we said, that's something that's going to very likely happen the majority of the time. And he puts down 2 1-drops, the Kita and
Yes.
another Daisy, which is devastating if you're R&B.
Yeah, we see here Tim opening up with a very strong curve, and R&B is going to have to fight back with some aggression. Let's see how he responds.
Jim comes down. Of course, next turn he'll be able to ink and ink again with Sail, so he can remove a Daisy, and then he can fire the cannons on the Kita. So that will take care of 2 of the threats on board. The second Baymax in Tim's deck goes into the Inkwell. Looks like we're going on a quest here for an additional 5. We're going to get 2 Daisy triggers, Fishbone Quill to the bottom. And a whole new world is sent to the bottom. And just like we predicted, a lot of Daisy triggers sending things to the bottom of R&B's deck. Not necessarily the worst cards going to the bottom, though. You do want to see some characters come out if you're R&B. He hasn't lost anything like Grab Your Sword. We see another Kita come down and the Ana, which
Yeah,
will quest for 2.
We're going to see how R&B is able to respond to this board. Sorry, I had to fix my mic real quick. Everything sounds good?
Yeah, we hear your mic coming in.
Awesome. So crazy start for Tim, to be honest with you. I'm not sure how R&B is going to be able to respond to all these bodies. That one gym is not going to do enough. He's going to have to get that second one down.
Yep, so he inks double with the Azurite C. He's got to choose what else he wants to put into the inkwell with that card, so Jim gets the Challenger 2. Decides to go for the Smash and takes out one of the daisies. Might see Fire the Cannons come down or another Jim. Want to establish that board a little bit better. What do you think about getting rid of the Smash there? You think we're getting into, he has Fire the Cannons, he has Let It Go. Maybe Smash is just a bit too slow at this point?
Yeah, it's just that the smash only does 3 damage, and a lot of characters on Tim's board is will have that 4 health stat, so that smash isn't really going to be able to clean up. Now he could trade one gym into 2 bodies and then potentially smash something, but I think he knows that that smash is just going to be too slow, and we see just Tim slowly creeping up on lore.
Yeah, he quests again with the Daisy Donald's Day. We see another sail go to the bottom, so that's all the sails pretty much out of the game at this point. 2 have been used, 2 have been sent to the bottom. Tim questing with 2 for Ana. He does have another hero onto the board. Both Kitas are heroes. So that's 4 more
Yes.
lore. Tim's got 1 card in his hand. 2 cards, actually. But if R&B is able to get something that can ink this turn, I was going to say he can remove the Ana and the Daisy, but the Ana gets readied by Sven, and he decides to challenge the Jim Hawkins with both of his Kitas. That's no cards in hand for Tim, which is not the worst for R&B, but there's not a lot of answers he has available.
Yeah, it's funny because R&B is the ramp deck, but yet somehow Tim just has 5 characters on board, and this is what we talked about earlier. Uh, the problem with Sapphire and Steel Garrick is just that again we do have a strong card like Jim being able to swing for 4, but against decks like this, when they're able to just go wide with big beefy stat lines of small low cost ink characters, it's just not enough. And cards like Let It Go is way too slow only to answer one thing. Jim R&B had to have the other Jim survive somehow, but Tim answered it knowing that that's all R&B has to answer. Honestly, I think this is going to be a game for Tim, unfortunately, just because that curve that Tim had was just insane.
Yeah. If R&B had 3 characters on his board that turn, he could let it go one of the extra characters and then also ink
Mhm.
to give his gyms +4, but not something available to him in this game, but something to keep in mind for a potential game 3. But this Ana putting on a ton of pressure as basically an inkable Daisy in this deck that doesn't have the downside of potentially giving your opponent additional cards. So here, R&B decides to remove both Kitas, one with Fire the Cannons, one with Jim Hawkins. Now, I don't believe Sven or Daisy are heroes, which means Ana will only quest for 1. So we have 5 on board now. Nala, I don't think is a hero either. So that's just 5 on Tim's side of the board. Let me double check on those characters. Nala is an ally. Daisy is an ally, and surely Sven is also an ally. So, no hero on the board. We're questing for 3. We see another Jim go into R&B's hand. Is he going to quest with a Sven or take the Jim
Yeah.
out? What would you do here?
Honestly, I would probably just go for the questing, but then since this is open deck list, Tim probably doesn't want R&B to have a chance of a comeback, and for a weird shift Jim into Swords play or something like that, he's just going to answer that Jim and seal the deal. R&B's at 0 lore. He's just too far behind, like not even close in the lore gap. that curve that Tim had is just what's so strong in these decks. Kind of similar to like green purple that's been going around. These 1, 2, 3 turns can be so effective of gaining lore very quickly in this new meta. We'll have to see next game RMB open up the gym again for the third time, hopefully, and have a better chance than he had this game.
He's going to put Jim into the inkwell, play out an aerial. And that should be game. There is 6 on Tim's side of the board, right? 2 from Daisy, 2 from Sven, and 2 from Anna and Nala combined. That'll do it. That is game number 2, going over to Tim with the aggressive start. He had what he needed. He had the Daisy. He had the Anna follow-up with the Kitas. And he got there in the end just too fast for what RMB was able to do. So we're going to go into game number 3 here, the deciding game to see if North America can cut the lead a little bit. We'll take a look at the standings once again. Here we see the only 2 wins for North America are Sailor and No I'm Not. Spessy, Din, Artabax, Frank Karsten, and Kawa all getting wins for the powerful European team. Right now, RMB just trying to claw back as well as he can to get North America back in the race here.
Yeah, that game was super painful to see as a Sapphire and Steel New World player. Couldn't really interact with that board, unfortunately. Just, again, very hard pressure coming in from Tim, and that's right. I really like his list, the way that the curve fits. He has a Bayamax to Rapunzels. He has locations in the deck, pretty much a little bit of everything, along with some bodyguards in there. So honestly, this deck is really spicy. I'm gonna expect people to start using it. I personally want to try it out. It looks like such a fun deck, and what's really awesome about set 6 is we're seeing this color combination get some shine. I don't think this combination got any representation since set 1, if I'm not mistaken. So super awesome to see a player like Tim build this deck, and hopefully RMB, what he has going for him is going first on this game, right? Being on the play is such a strong move, especially as Sapphire and Steel. So that should help RMB against this really rough aggro deck.
Yeah, that's true. There are a ton of cards we have not seen out of Tim, though, that could change the game into his favor. Things like Baloo, things like Donald Duck, Alice could be huge. The Ward character, as well as that big statted Scrooge McDuck, that 5/5, that quest for 2. We've seen 2 Baymax go into the ink, but we've not seen the character hit the board yet, and of course the McDuck manners. But with RMB going first, if he has the correct tools, he can take over the game early, not allowing Tim to get that foothold onto the game. And take a look at RMB's hand. He's got the gym, he's got the shift line, he's got Tinkerbell, he's got Pete that can potentially contest the board early. We'll see what he decides to keep here. What are you keeping, and what are you sending back?
I'm keeping anything that's pressure, like the Jim Hopkins package, which I've said since the beginning of this match that's going to be very crucial for RMB to fight the board. And I really like what he decided to keep. He kept his ramp just in case he has a turn to use it, which I think on the play he's able to do so without falling behind a turn. I think he's debating to keep the Tinkerbell. I do want to see a turn 1 popsicle, so I think I'd send 3 back. The Tinkerbell is probably the hardest choice, which RMB just said that is a tough mulligan. So other than the Tinkerbell, I send everything back, keep the gym, and hopefully open up with some popsicles or Fortispheres.
Yeah, the gym line is huge for sure. That's definitely something he's going to want to keep to put a ton of board pressure on, and he does shift for 3, so the Pete, not necessarily something that he needs to keep in his hand. He does keep the Fishbone Quill. That is a turn 3 play as well. I wonder if he's choosing to keep that as just ink insurance just in case, or if he's planning to use the Fishbone Quill. Of course, in the first game, it was used to great effect, and he finds a ton of great cards off the top to complement what he's got going on. He's got 2 Fortis Spheres, going to let him draw cards. He's got a Sail the Azurite Sea that'll draw him another card and let him ink an additional card, and he's got Smash just in case.
Yeah, this is a very strong opening hand from R&B. As a New World player, this is the kind of hand you want to open up with, right? You want to see your item, you want to see a potential turn 2 character you can put on the board for offense, defense, and then a turn 3 removal or your ramp to get your game plan going. This hand is gonna really be useful to counter anything that's a Daisy Dug or maybe like a sneaky location drop from Tim. But other than R&B, what should Tim be opening up with on the draw? Since I'm not too much of an expert on this color combination, I'm assuming he just wants to stick with the early aggro. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that he has to do, right? I mean, he doesn't really have another choice. There's not really a pivot in his deck. Um, I think something like DeCandio's list that we saw earlier in the championship is maybe a little bit more flexible going on the draw. But in this deck, you have Daisy, you have Kita, and you have Nala on turn 1. On turn 2, you have Anna, you have Duke Weaselton, who's a 1/2 the quest for 2. Mm-hmm. You have Baloo, and Baloo is a 3 cost. So these early characters
Bodyguard
are really your only options. You could try to go for early characters with that early location. I believe it's Neverland. It's a 1 cost inkable 4 strength gains a lore location. But really, you just have one game plan if you're Tim, and that's put characters on the board and turn them sideways.
Yeah, exactly. I think Tim's best chance is opening up like a Daisy into a Anna Donald Duck Bodyguard turn 3 with a combination of Baloo, and try to get an Alice going or bait a Rapunzel. And really, what's going to be crucial for him is going to be the 7. That's how you pronounce the character's name, to ready his characters to protect R&B from challenging into them. So we just see him do the turn 1 drop, which is pretty what we were saying, right? Just start getting some lore, and R&B's gonna have the gym. Now the question is he gonna choose to ramp or play the gym?
He inks
and it
the
looks like he's
sail.
gonna decide to play on gym. Yeah. What are your thoughts on him inking the sail and going into the gym?
I think inking the sail is perfectly fine because next turn you're shifting anyway, so you don't necessarily need the challenger bonus. If Nala decides to quest here, the shift gym is just going to remove it. So you're not really worried. And you have the Fishbone Quill if you want to ramp. So you don't necessarily need to double ink to get the gym off on this turn 3. And there's not really any removal in Tim's deck, so the gym seems pretty safe to just sit around here if he wants it to.
Yeah, I think the idea was for him to be like, okay, if I ramp, that Nala is gonna get 1 lore, and I've seen in pretty much all these days, that 1 lore could matter. So I think he wants to just get the gym on board, and since he does have that Fishbone Quill, he's able to just ramp on turn 3, which is super awesome when you have those 2 like ink ramp combinations to go for a turn 2 or turn 3 ramp. And he does shift into the gym Hawkins, so now we see an early shift, and this is what I was waiting to see. I really can't emphasize enough how strong this package is into New Worlds lists, and I really hope a lot of people start trying him out, because for situations like this and an aggro meta, which I think we're going into, he's very strong.
Yeah, and there's really nothing here that can punish the gym. He does have the Wendy Darling, Tim, that is, in his deck, the 3/1 that quests for 2, and also has support. So that is a character that can be used to buff up his other characters to give them more challenge potential, but that character needs to quest to do that. So we see the Donald come down, and we're going to quest for 3 because I believe Donald is a hero. So the Ana will get the extra lore here. A hero and a musketeer. But right now, if you're RMB, you're feeling really, really good in this situation. You have a ton of options available to you. Probably just going to hire him here. Or he could smash. Just wants to control the board. Not let any lore go by. And of course, Tim is at 4 because the Donald gives an additional lore to a character. So he quested for 4 last turn instead of 3. So that's why he is at 4. But RMB not wanting to draw cards when he can just control the board entirely like he was able to do on that turn. And now we just have a 0-3 Nala on the side of Tim.
Yeah, what a strong turn from RMB. You have to just control that lore on the board and make sure he doesn't run away with a lot early game. So it was really nice to see that smash coming in clutch in this matchup. We do see a Scrooge McDuck come down with that 5/5 stat line, so he can trade into the gym Hawkins, so RMB can't just freely quest anymore. So I'd really like to see what he does this turn. And it looks like he does the Hiram to draw 2 cards, probably just to get a little bit more options as this game goes on, because so far it looks like it's not going to end fast, which is really awesome for us. We get to see, more time on Lorcana. What do you think Tim needs to do as, RMB is building up, ink and characters? How can Tim react to RMB's pressure?
I think the Scrooge McDuck was a good start. It's definitely characters that are a little bit stickier, but he's going to sing Let It Go, surely on the Scrooge McDuck, which is going to hit the inkwell. Not what you want to see if you're Tim, but RMB making a huge play there, putting the Hiram down, drawing additional cards just to see what he had available to him, and then singing that Let It Go. This gym rigging specialist has just been unbelievable in this game so far. It's exactly the card he needed to stay in this matchup.
Yes, that's exactly what he needed.
Mm-hmm. And again, Tim's just got to try and establish some more threats here and maybe overwhelm what RMB has available to him. We see an Alice come down, which quest for 2 has ward, can give another character ward. But Jim can just challenge these 1 strength characters all day and not worry about anything.
The Alice coming down, so that is very awesome to see. Finally, I don't think we've seen her in the previous 2 games, so her effect will not activate until she quests. So we'll have to wait for a turn for that to happen. And it looks like RMB is just, realizing the board's not too crazy, but if Alice is able to get her effect off on a bodyguard, that's where things get tricky. And we already see RMB use 1 Let It Go. So now he really has to start drawing more answers. So that Fishbone Quill with the Hiram and potentially playing maybe another gym would be nice just to have multiple bodies on the.
Yeah, he's also got Tinkerbell available to him, just drawn off the top there. Doesn't have the ink for it right now, but it looks like he's going with your line here, deciding to put the Fishbone out onto the board. We'll see if he decides to use it to send, potentially fire the cannons into the ink. Yep. Gonna quest. We'll see if he gets rid of it, and he does, looking for more answers. Another gym. And a Cogsworth is huge. Will just allow RMB to trade even more unfairly into Tim's side of the board.
Yes, this is very nice to see from RMB. And, he's really thinking carefully on what he wants to do. Just because this board doesn't look threatening, what's really crucial about this Amber Sapphire deck is if it gets to sneak in like a sort of a lock to where they can just quest 2 turns back to back. From 4 lore that Tim is at, in 1 second he can be at 10 and 11. And once we get into that Baymax range, that's going to get pretty scary. So RMB, I know he's thinking about that and just trying to set up those 2-3 turns ahead.
Yeah, R&B also decides to quest here with the Jim Hawkins rigging specialist. There aren't really too many combat tricks on Tim's side. We know he has the Kita, and we mentioned the Wendy Darling earlier, but the Wendy Darling has to be on the board, and Kita is only going to reduce Jim's strength, and Tim just does not have the strength to challenge back at this point, so the Jim can quest freely without really worrying about losing that guy. R&B thinking about puts the Cogsworth into the ink and puts another Jim Hawkins onto the board, just having more threats to potentially clear out Tim's board whenever he quests.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, R&B does not have a Fishbone Quill on the board anymore, correct?
That's right. He quested with the Hiram and got rid of the Fishbone Quill, but if he inks just once per turn, they still get Challenger +2. So they could potentially use 2 Jims to take out 1 Daisy or 1 Alice.
Now, the thing about that, though, is R&B is in top deck mode. So he does have that Tinkerbell, so we do see that coming down. And if it's a good card, maybe R&B won't be able to ink it, and those Jims won't be able to attack. But hopefully it's something where it doesn't matter if he inks it or not, and those Jims could trade. What Tim's gonna have to decide is do I even want to quest here? What do you think Tim is his thoughts going through him right now?
I think the thoughts in his head are probably not great. He's in a pretty tough position here right now. His board is very weak compared to the Ruby Sapphire board. Ever since turn 3, when the rigging specialist came down onto the board, it's really been an uphill battle, especially since Tim did not see the turn 1 Daisy. He saw a turn 1 Nala. Nala is a 0-4 that only quests for 1 compared to Daisy, which is a 1-4 that quests for 2. So right now, Tim, again, just needs to build up more threats, but he can't win the game if he just puts characters onto the board without questing. Eventually, R&B is going to find the Grab Your Swords. He's going to play it in concert with Tinkerbell and clear Tim's board, so he's got to do something. Decides to quest here for 4. A lucky dime goes to the bottom. Probably pretty good for R&B, not going to lie. Not necessarily something he needs right now. But Tim is at 10 lore. He's halfway
that Nala's
there.
In that Nala has been there turn 1, right?
Nala was there,
or is that a different
ever
Nala?
since
That's a
turn
different
1.
one, right?
No, that's the same Nala. It's been there since turn 1. It took the 1 damage from Jim Hawkins and has been just chilling. So right now, Tim's got no cards in his hand. He is at 10 lore. The Kita's pretty big. It reduces the strength of R&B's side of the board. So right now, Flaversham cannot challenge. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Challenger will get over this Kita ability. I believe that these Jims cannot challenge with any strength because their strength has been reduced by Kita. I don't think Challenger overrides that. I could be wrong, but I think Jim is the only thing in play here. So actually, with that Kita in hand and Tim being able to put it onto the board, R&B's kind of in a tricky situation.
This is what we were talking about, right? I had mentioned earlier. Theo was on 4 lore, and then all of a sudden, R&B's in a very scary spot. And that Kita is going to be a very impactful something on this turn, which is what really a lot of people wonder, well, how is this deck even strong? Like, they don't play removal. Well, Kita is like a pseudo removal in the sense of where your opponent, when Tim plays Kita, the opponent can't really respond to Tim's board, and just one turn stalling out. As long as the lore is getting closer and closer, R&B is in a very tough spot here. And like you said, Jim is the only one that can attack. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Looks like some confusion going on in the game.
Yeah, Daisy has Ward. That's what the players are figuring out right now. Alice quested and gave Daisy ward. So we were talking about a minute ago. R&B's in a great position, but the Kita comes down, prevents the challenging, and next turn, Tim is going to quest for 7, go to 13. So R&B decides to put the gas on a little bit here, challenges with the gym, and quests with his 2 smaller gyms and the Hiram going up to 8. So right now, actually, we're in a super sticky situation. Kita was the exact card that Tim needed there, and he had it.
Yeah, that 7 lore that Tim can gain is just so much. If I'm R&B, I'm just hoping he drew a dead card, and I'm not sure if there's any dead cards. Maybe like a 1-drop another or something, but 7 lore is going to be crazy. Now with the Tinkerbell out though, if Tim doesn't draw another key, if Tim drew a Kita, then I would say it's probably over. But now with that Tinkerbell on the board, Tinkerbell can pretty much get rid of 2 characters with her second effect. So potentially R&B can board wipe. We have to see what happens here. And the symbol off the Daisy, that's going to be a very strong card.
That's huge. And we do see the...
Unfortunately.
But he goes to 18 here. I thought he was at 17. I must have miscounted.
It should be 2 on Alice, 2 on Daisy, 2 on Kita, 1 on the small Kita, and then Alice gives +1 lore. But unfortunately, Garrick, that Wendy has ward, so R&B can't interact with it. Is that a whole new... Oh, he got whole new world off the top, but no, Garrick. It's too much. If he gives Tim a whole new hand, it's practically over.
But he has to do it. Wendy has to be removed. So Tim was in a spot where things were looking really dicey. The Kita comes down, completely changes the entire game, which is what was so exciting about not being able to see his hand. We thought it was over for him, but he's managed to come back with the Kita. And right now, I think Whole New World has to be sung at some point. He needs Grab Your Sword to remove the Wendy. If he gets Grab Your Sword, things completely turn on their head. But he has to play a Whole New World. I feel like he has to do it. Is there another answer? I don't think there is.
Unfortunately, right now at the moment, there is no... Well, okay, he can play the Simba, use Simba's second effect to draw 2 cards and get rid of 2 cards in his get rid of a card in his hand and potentially draw the sword, so he doesn't have to use it. But if he activates Whole New World and Tim draws into a Baloo, it's over, Garrick. We'll have to see what R&B can do here.
I think he's going to sing a Whole New World
here
with
the Simba,
Hawkins.
So I think... Yeah.
And then he'll be challenging with Tinkerbell Shirley. So down comes the Whole New World. What a tight match. It's all coming down to this, it feels like. We'll see we have no clue what Tim's cards are. We're never going to know. Fishbone Quill, Cogsworth, Whole New World, Hiram. No Grab Your Sword. He got another wheel, though.
That another Tinkerbell? Yep.
He can hard cast wheel.
Oh, man, this is not...
He can hard cast wheel and sing Grab Your Sword with Tink. Let's keep in mind here that the gyms do have Challenger 2 right now. I feel like he has to Whole New World again. He has to. There's nothing else he can do, right?
There's nothing he can do. Fortunately, the gyms do have that +2 to clean up house. And he has to activate that Whole New World.
The Wendy's have to go. Using Fishbone, playing Fishbone could be okay here. Because he can ink an additional card and give the gyms Challenger 4 for the turn, right? Which is pretty huge. But he still needs to wheel and sing Grab Your Sword. So I think playing down the Fishbone Quill and inking an additional will give him everything he needs if he gets Grab Your Sword off this next wheel. So we're going to ink
Yeah, he has to. He has to find the swords, Garrick. If he doesn't find the swords,
So the gyms
just
both
like the
have
gyms, like the
Challenger
fishbone
4.
krill, you mentioned it.
They both have Challenger
You
4.
called it.
Here we go. Here comes the whole new world. Will R&B find the answer he needs, or is it going to Europe? Are they going to take a 4-game lead?
We're about to find out right now, Garrick, and let's see. We haven't seen the swords all game, and we know R&B plays a couple copies of it.
R&B
He's teasing us.
looking. Is it there? Is it to the right?
I don't think it's there,
He has
Garrick.
it. He has it. It's right next to the popsicle.
Oh, he does have it.
So now he can clear the board.
I see it.
I believe he can clear the board, can he not? I don't know the exact damage. So Alice will go. And then he has 3 characters that can challenge and clear up the board. The problem is...
Oh, this is crazy.
The problem is, on the next turn, we're going to see more characters come down, surely. Maybe even a location from Tim's side. And R&B's in the same situation he was this turn.
Yeah, this is a very awkward spot. Again, if Tim has very strong stat lines on his next turn, that's another problem R&B is going to have to deal with. Interesting to see what R&B is deciding to do. Does he have enough ink to do the sword?
Yeah, he has 5. He has 5 still sitting there. His ink is not updated on in Pixelborn. So the Alice should be gone, right? Did the Alice not have a damage on it? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe the
no,
dice
Alice is gone.
was
Alice is gone. Oh, no.
Maybe the dice was to indicate ward. So we're going to challenge Hiram. What is happening here? The gyms need to challenge the Kita, and the Hiram needs to challenge the Alice. Okay, they figured it out. We're good. What a turn.
Okay, awesome. That's awesome sportsmanship. Awesome sportsmanship.
Yep. And I believe...
Now we're going to see what Tim has, Garrick.
We do have another whole new world. And if I'm not mistaken, there's more than one grab your sword in this deck. And he has a Tinkerbell, he has a grab. So he can do both next turn.
I was going to say, if he does have the blue, but R&B does have Let It Go in his deck, so he can get rid of it.
Double Alice.
Oh, my
Daisy.
Lord. Oh. Well, we know he can double sword, Garrick.
Well, he has Tinkerbell as well. He's got...
he only plays 2
dying.
copies of swords. I was mistaken.
He can single sword. He has Smash. He has another Smash in his deck. He has Zeus. He has 2 Zeuses, I think, in his deck still. He's got Answers. He has Wheel. I don't know if
Unfortunately, the Alice have ward. He's not able to interact with them.
Right, but if he finds the sword, Tinkerbell plus sword will clear both Alice's because they're 1/3s, correct? So he'll draw 2 here to see more options, gets a Fortisphere and a Popsicle. This is a tricky situation that R&B finds himself in because at 18, we're going to be putting down answers on Tim's side of the board questions on Tim's side of the board that have to be answered every single turn, and R&B, it's going to be hard for him to find space to quest and come back.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Alices have ward, Garrick, so at 18 lore, I'm not sure what R&B can do here. He only runs 2 copies of Grab Your Swords, and we already saw him use 1. I think, unfortunately, Tim here has put a checkmate to R&B. That ward is just so strong in this matchup. There's no answers that Sapphire still has directly to ward.
Well, he still,
and like you
he
said,
still
he
has
has
a
to be
whole new
entering
world.
his board every turn.
He still has a whole new world, so he can play a whole new world and find the second sword and play Tinkerbell. So that would be the answer to those 2. The Daisy is a different question. that needs to be answered by something else entirely.
Yes, correct. Which,
So,
like you said, is Zeus or something like that.
or fire the cannons. Or does he not run fire the cannons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe he runs 2 copies.
He
I have
runs two.
2
Okay.
copies of Fire the Cannon.
All right. So he has.
Ah,
What is happening here? He's questing with everything and conceding?
questing for everything.
Dime for 2 to go to 17?
I believe
And
he's
that's it. A scoop?
conceding.
Is that a.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Unless he had to ink the swords earlier and we missed it,
Yeah,
or unless he's out of
unless the sword is
Tinkerbells.
God. No, he had a Tinkerbell in his hand. Then
Unfortunately,
that
that's
is
it.
game.
Oh no, R&B just had no answers. Oh,
That
how
is game.
unfortunate.
And here we thought that R&B was in the perfect situation. He got the Jim Hawkins down on turn 2. He shifted it on 3, and still Tim was able to find the lights and get there in the end. What a crazy match, full of insane gameplay. We'll have to ask R&B what happened there on the final turn, because I believe he still had sword in his
Very
deck.
unfortunate. Yeah, I'm not sure. Unless he knows something we didn't. If he got rid of his Tinkerbells, that was pretty much it for R&B. He knows his deck very well,
I
and
mean, the
he saw
potential.
that there was just nothing he can do.
Yeah, the potential is there where maybe he knew he could not get over the finish line. Like he could stall for a little bit, but without his lucky dimes, he would not be able to like finish the game, and he would have to wheel that turn. He would get rid of the lucky dime and just know that there's no way to get over the finish line. But we will ask him about that here in just a second. So here we
Hi.
have the
Yeah, the
deck
European
shuffle.
players are gonna interview him,
Okay.
and we should be interviewing R&B shortly.
Alrighty.
Wow, what a crazy game, Garrick. That was a crazy game, and
Yeah, that was an insane match. We were losing our minds for sure. One of the more exciting matches that we've gotten. Not to say that the other ones weren't crazy as well, but we got a spicy list out of Tim, and we got a really cool list from R&B playing the Jim Hawkins with the shift line, which was just so cool to see. Such a powerhouse combination that we saw pop off there for a little bit in the third game. But right now we're just waiting for
yeah, I agree.
the players. Are they in here? Hello, can you guys hear us?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So let's start with Tim. Congratulations on your win. Looked like you were in a really,
Thank you.
really tough situation there in the third game. Like we mentioned, the Jim Hawkins came down in the shift line as well. But we were thinking that the game was all but wrapped up for R&B, and then the Kita came down and sort of switched the script, and you were able to quest for a large amount and just put on a ton of pressure there. How are you feeling there towards the beginning, middle of that game?
I was quite confident because this is mainly how you play the deck. You put a lot of creatures next to each others, and you do 2 big swing with Kida. This is how you're supposed to play, especially this matchup, because it's quite difficult for blue still to deal with a lot of creatures. He managed to find a very good swipe uh, on the first round, but it was unlikely that he was able to do that on 2 different games.
Yeah, Rip, do you have any questions about Tim's gameplay or his deck list?
Yeah, just one question. Just want to congratulate you on your win, Tim. And I just want to say, what made you go with Sapphire Amber over what you're known for with your big win at the DLC on Amethyst Ruby? What made you decide to go with Sapphire Amber? Is Sapphire Amber finally a playable deck in set 6?
I was expecting a lot of gray in this meta against because I know it's very very famous in NA. And the ward package of the deck seems very good to face those Diablos and stuff like that. I think the deck is not awesome. It has a benefit to be a new one, so it's quite nice to bring some spicy tech in this tournament. So that's why I bring this one.
As far as the locations,
Yes, very.
Sorry, what were you saying, RB?
No, I was just saying very spicy, very very spicy, Liz.
As far as the locations go, we didn't see any of them hit the board, but in your testing, have they been exceptionally powerful for you? How do you feel about the locations in the deck overall?
They bring the last turn 1 play that could miss if you don't play them for the 1-drop location, and the 4-drop location is to continue to put pressure against more control decks such that play Sisu or Biprep, because you need to be able to put some other type of lore threat than creatures in order to do not explode instantly when you the opponent play a Biprep or a big big swipe, board wipe.
Right, and with your high willpower characters all throughout the deck, have you found that Baymax has been pretty strong for you?
The problem with Baymax is that he takes the same slot as Rapunzel, so people are a lot playing around Rapunzel, so it's kind of difficult to value him that much, but it can in some places give the possibility for an ally to quest for 2 instead of 1.
Rip, do you have any additional questions for Tim?
No, that was, you pretty much summed it up, all the questions that I had. I think he's very knowledgeable on the color combination, and seeing him play the match and hearing his details on the deck was just so awesome to see in action. And I just want to say again, congratulations. It was a very awesome game to see from both of you guys play. The viewers were going crazy in the comments. And again, Tim, very awesome to see your deck in action.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't want to keep you too long. We know you have to, it's late there and you have to get to work in the morning, so we'll let you go. But thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
R&B. Kind of a heartbreaker there. We were thinking it was locked up for you, like I said, and then the Kita came down and everything sort of changed.
Yeah.
I feel like if Kita was not in his hand on that turn, do you feel like you are able to cross the finish line? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, he needed to not have Kita in hand. If he didn't have Kita in hand, then the game was over. Like, I win it very easily. I strung together multiple whole new worlds just to like answer his board and clear his board, but I was forced to exert everything to do that. If I would have found the grab your sword off the first whole new world and didn't have to sing with the Tinkerbell, then I could have quested for maybe an additional 2 lore. I still don't know that would have made the difference because I ended the game at 17. It's a really rough matchup. I think that him having the Kita was the difference maker. If he didn't have Kita there, it probably goes my way. Him having the Kita there was just lights out at that point. Not getting any real effective trades. Like, I wanted the gym to be able to take out the Daisy, but because of the Kita effect, it going down to 2 and Daisy being like the willpower on his characters is absolutely insane. I was a little bit underprepared for this specific style of matchup just because I was only running 2 grab your sword. if I had been running more and was able to have, found 2 grab your sword at a time and just be able to free sweep his board with them, I definitely would have felt like I was in a better position. So I had to kind of like make the most of having very limited removal resources that answered his board effectively. And like you can't prep boards with a single grab your sword because then the Baymax just becomes a lethal threat. So it was really difficult trying to circumnavigate the matchup. I knew that it was an unfavored matchup. I do think that in the games that we played, with the exception of game 2, like game 2, he kept a full 7. Like he just had the stone cold, like nuts.
Yeah,
I was like,
everything.
when he said keep 7, I was like, so you got 2 daisies in your hand, sick. I knew that game was chalk, but I was like, maybe I can reel it back in game 3. But no, man, I didn't. If I would have had enough questing pressure in play to then end the game after those 2 whole new worlds, like, yeah, that would have been great. But it was a tough matchup. I'm happy with the way that the deck performed, and I don't think that I made any obvious errors. I'll have to go back and watch the games to see if there was anything that I could have done differently, but I feel pretty confident in the play, especially knowing that, probably the worst matchup that I could have paired into in round 1 of this event.
No, I thought it was really good from your point of view. I mean, we were going to ask you about towards the end of the game there, but then chat is now caught up to that point of the game, the very end, where I thought Alice was a 1-3, and she's not. She's a 1-4. So
she's a 1-4.
Yeah, I was like,
everything in this deck has like 4 and 5 willpower. I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to answer this stuff?
Yeah.
Until Ravensburger creates like what we really need is like anger the gods. We need something that deals 3 to everything, because grab your sword just like characters have gotten progressively better stat lines, and we're still trying to use the same removal tools from set 1 and even set 2. And unfortunately, characters have far superseded the removal that we have in Steel.
Right.
Ruby's gotten really, really great removal options, but it seems like they're very, very hesitant to provide Steel with the removal options it needs to contend against, some of these higher willpower characters in the game.
Yeah, so I was sitting there, I was like, okay, well, he needs to wheel again, and then find the second grab, and then you can Tinkerbell and grab your sword, and then clear the Alice's. But then, no, because they have 4 willpower. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, I was going to say, RMB, I think you made a very good meta call with your deck list. I know you've been playing the deck for such a long time, and honestly, taking a look at it again one more time here on my screen, how important did you find the gym package to be included? Because I know right now in the community online, there's people who are saying it's not that good. But me and Garrick were talking before the game and saying, well, what does RMB need to open up with for him to combat this deck? And I was saying he has to open up with the baby gym turn 2. And you did all 3 games. And
yeah. I mean, I'm mulliganed really
how was it
for it.
Yeah.
I think the gyms they're insane. I think that like the 2-drop Jim Hawkins, the Stubborn Cabin Boy, is like one of the best 2-drop options that we have. I think that the card gives us a tool that we haven't had in the past, which is the ability to effectively answer 4 willpower characters like Daisy. And it's just complemented by the fact that we're running both Sail and Fishbone Quill. So we have 8 copies of cards that are able to double trigger Jim, making him a 4/4. A 2-cost 4/4 is just nuts. Absolutely insane. And I've been very, very impressed with the shift as well. It's a 5/5. It shifts for 3. It's got, deals the damage, which, like, on play, it deals an additional damage, which creates, like, these really unique lines that you could clear boards that are not as obvious. And plus, like, we're a wheel deck. Like, I've never really felt like playing a shift line in Sapphire Steel Wheel, because we've always had Fishbone Quill, and I leverage Fishbone Quill as my quote-unquote shift target. But, like, Jim kind of changes that mold. And he's also, with Stubborn Cabin Boy, you can ink for turn, trigger the Challenger, shift the Jim, deal a damage to Library, and then swing into the Library for 7, which is huge. I do not like playing cards like Rise of the Titans and Hideaway. Like, They're negative tempo. It's not what I want to be doing. If a character that has a great stat line can sing wheel, then like it's just an automatic inclusion for me in wheel variants. I don't know yet whether or not the wheel variants or the no wheel variants are going to be the way to go moving forward in Azurite C meta yet. I still have to I still need to do more testing, but I do like where I was at with this. I included some, intentional one-ups, uh, just as like most of the other players have stated, in an open deck list, your opponents have to respect certain one-ups. So like that, you'll see the inclusion of like Along Came Zeus. I don't really like Along Came Zeus on this list, but as an additional answer to things like Scrooge McDuck, for instance, or Pluto was the one thing that I was really considering was going to be a large portion of this field, because I think the card's absolutely cracked insane, and I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't find a way to fit at least one of them into my deck list. Like,
Yeah, I know that's something we always talk about, how the deck space is super tight. So I'm glad to see that at least one Vision's made it on there. But I think overall you played the match very well. That game two, yeah, that was just ultimate curve on Tim's side.
oh
Nothing
yeah,
you
I
can
was
really do
cooked.
there. But that game three was super exciting. That turn one and that game one, game three were just super strong. And I don't think you made any misplays either. Definitely, we're all gonna have to watch that back. But congrats on that match. Super awesome to see you use the New World list, and it's only round one, so I know you'll come back easy. Still 3 more rounds to go, and I know you'll rep NA. Awesome, man. So good job.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. It was fun. I can't wait till round two.
Yeah, I like Rip said, games 1 and 3 were insane. Like the double shift tink was crazy. I'm sure a lot of people learned that you could
Yeah.
do that for the first time, like shift a big Tinkerbell onto a big Tinkerbell because they're both called Tinkerbell. That was really cool to see. And then just the anxiety and like anticipation of like, all right, he wheeled, what did he get type thing. And then we couldn't see Tim's hands, so we were just sort of like guessing. But crazy matches. I think they were well worth the price of admission, and like Rip said, we'll come back strong in round two for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it. Whoever my opponent is in round two, just understand that like
It's on.
you're gonna catch the brunt of the beating that I just took. So I'm taking my frustrations out on you.
All right, R&B, we forgot to ask Tim this question because we wanted to let him go and get some sleep because it's super early in the morning. But what would you like to plug? Where can we find you? Where can everyone find you and follow you if they want to see more R&B?
Yep. Yeah, so obviously I'm one half of the Lab Rats. We may or may not, wink wink, have a new episode of Lab Rats dropping tomorrow, which was Humble and I's first delve into the Azurite C meta. So keep on the lookout for that at YouTube/Labyrinth TCG. You can also find me on Twitter at R_M_BX. I've also created a Blue Sky account. I will be maintaining both of the accounts just so that I ensure that the knowledge that I have is, bountiful for every space and corner of the community. You guys can also reach me on Discord. You can like throw up the bald signal. I feel like I want to, yeah, like just throw up the bald signal. Like if somebody says the word bald, like there's a strong chance that I'll show up.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for the amazing match, and good luck in your next rounds.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate
Thank
you
you,
guys.
R&B. Appreciate you, boss. Yes, sir.
All right.
Wow,
Rip.
what a crazy stream, Gary. It started off kind of rough. I know there are a lot of technical issues, but that's been happening all week long. But I
Yeah.
think we got there halfway. And if we do cast again next time, I think we'll have a better understanding now that everyone's gone through it.
Yeah.
But overall, man, that was an awesome match, and it was super awesome time casting this game with you.
Yeah, man, for sure. Like we were talking about, that was a really fun match, and there were a lot of twists and turns, and this tournament has been absolutely amazing. Again, shout out to the judge Phil. He was messaging me on the back end as well, clarifying a few things that we had questions about. So it was great to get that live feedback from him. And of course, shout out to Pavel, who set all of this up. He is the GOAT. He is a pillar of the Lorcana community, and we would not all be here without him. So really, really appreciate him setting this up and putting this together for everyone. And again, congratulations to all the players that were chosen. There have been so many amazing matches all throughout the week, and I cannot wait for round number 2 in the Lorcana Cross Continental Championship.
Gonna be crazy, man. What's the score right now currently? 3-5, correct?
It is 2-6.
2-6. 2-6.
2-6.
Oh, 2-6. All right.
For Europe's been beating down North America. It is 2-6. But maybe things will flip on their head in round number 2. Rip, where can the people find you if they would like to find you? All of your information is down below in the description, but let them know as well.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Create, that's C-R-E with the number 8, Create TCG on YouTube, Twitter. That's pretty much where I do all my content information. And then you can also find me on Discord, Create Riplungs. You can just always message me. I'm always down to talk to everyone online in the Lorcana community, because honestly, just like this event proved it, this community is awesome. We got players from across the world playing against each other. So it's just super awesome to be here. Thank you again for having me. It was just such an awesome time to be here with you and to talk to R&B and Tim. And this is pretty much what it's all about, right? Like, again, shout out Pavel for, making this event happen. And this is just the beginning, round 1. We still got 3 more rounds to go, and I just can't wait.
Yeah, it's been exceptional. If you'd like to find me, luckily you're on my channel right now. Subscribe, like.
Hit that sub button.
It helps out. I make video essays and do interviews with some of the top players in the world. Next thing I got coming up is actually a video on Sapphire Steel, the history of the deck. If you saw my Bucky video, it would be very similar to that, so be on the lookout for that. If you want to follow me elsewhere, I also have Key Issues, which is my main channel where I talk about superheroes and comic books and stuff like that. You may have seen us before. We've been around like 10 years. We've got a pretty large audience, but if you're interested in that kind of stuff and haven't seen us before, go check out Key Issues. You can follow me at KI_Garrick at Twitter, and I also have a Blue Sky account, Key Issues Garrick on Blue Sky. Thank you again to Rip for coming and casting this match with me. Thank you again to Pavel for setting all of this up. And thank you to all the players for letting us watch their amazing high-level gameplay. And thank you, the viewer, for turning up and supporting this tournament. The Lorcana community is nothing but the best, and we love you all. Thanks, everyone, and we'll catch you in round number 2.